Alright guys, we just saw a pretty intense situation with the APD and a DUI stop. Why don't you guys tell me sort of what happened, and then we'll ask about your reactions.
So we saw them stopped on the right side of the road here. We pulled around to the backside, and then we all just kind of marched forward and picked our spots just surrounding them, so there was a lot of angles. And at first there was a guy who's sitting in the middle of the road, and the cop was, talking to him, and he was obviously trying to get him to do a sobriety test. And so we started filming, and that, in my opinion, seemed to change the scene entirely, because then the guy seemed a lot more, stoic to dealing with the cop. He was just being really not answering, trying to figure out a situation.
Flexing his rights.
Exactly. Then, then he started flexing his rights. He pleaded the fifth that he wasn't going to answer anything. And the cop kept trying to egg him on. He even went through the motion of, okay, I want you to hold it up like this. He's like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And it just came down to him kept trying to intimidate him into doing the procedure. So then he arrested him. Yeah.
Hey, Lynn, what did you think about the gentleman flexing his rights?
Oh, he was perfectly right in doing so. I'm glad he did it.
Yeah.
It's tough to do that, knowing you're going to be arrested when you do. I know that for a fact. But sometimes that's what you've got to do.
The guy looked extremely coherent, or sounded coherent. He looked very lucid. Looked like the last person in the world who would come off as drunk.
Right.
So
I did hear him something mentioned about asthma. Maybe he was having an asthma attack or something.
Well, so
but
what I found interesting is how well spoken he was, and how on top of it he was, and it seemed to me like he was sober. What do you think about someone who's sober, who's flexing their rights and refused to do a sobriety test or a breathalyzer?
Well, again, it's best to flex your rights like that and not do the test, either the breathalyzer or the sobriety test, the field sobriety test, because they just use that against you and trick you in some way. So I'm glad that he did it.
Okay. So what happened next?
Well, after they arrested him, took him to the car, they started working in on the women. They just walked. There was two of them. One was in the car, and oh, sorry. So then they shifted to the women, and one was hiding because she didn't want to be filmed, and the other one was stating how it was her car, and she was sober, and she wanted to take it home, from what I could guess. And then our group offered to take them home, or her home, whoever wanted to. And the cops were ignoring us, obviously, until they asked us to move. That's the only time they ever involved themselves. And then she just kept getting a non-answer until, well, there you have it. They just kind of picked up shop and left.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of non-answers either way.
Hey, Lynn, so Jason Mistric, the stalker cop who stalked Kat Bleich, he came over and barked some orders at you, told you to go, well, told three of us to go stand behind a telephone pole. Tell us a bit about how you felt when he came up and started barking orders and threatening to arrest you.
Well, I knew those orders were BS, but he did threaten to arrest me if I didn't move over behind the pole, and I took him at his word. I figured he probably would actually do it. In the past, I have refused to move before and flexed my rights at that time, but it hasn't been too long since I was arrested unjustly, and I didn't want to undergo that again. So I decided, at least this night, I was going to go ahead and move rather than take a chance on being arrested.
Yeah.
Sometimes they lie. They'll tell you they'll arrest you when they won't, but I wasn't willing to take that chance tonight.
So, what do you think about them telling the women that they basically had two options? They could either get a taxi or they could be arrested. And even though we offered to drive them home, we had 5 sober drivers, 2 of which were female, and the woman who owned the vehicle asked them to allow us to blow into a breathalyzer to prove that we were sober. The cops did not give that to them as an option. They ended up towing the vehicle, which as last I heard, cost $183 to get your car out of Southside Towing. What do you think about that?
That's a bunch of BS. That protects their agreement they have with the towing company. It's just a revenue generation kind of thing. There's no reason why they couldn't let the vehicle go with a sober driver, and there would be no towing charge. Of course, that's the whole deal. They want a towing charge to come into play.
Well, the cops said that they didn't know who we were, which is a lie. They knew who we were.
Right.
And they said they couldn't trust us. But apparently they can trust taxi cab drivers or cops.
Well, they trust the tow truck driver, too.
Right. But the cop, who was supposedly the supervisor on the scene, was a cop who admitted under testimony that he stalked a woman. So do you find that hypocritical?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Yeah. What do you think? Your girlfriend's in the car right now with one of the passengers. What do you think about the situation, and what do you think your girlfriend is saying right now to the victim?
Oh, just probably the hassle of having to drive the car all the way back here after taking one of the victims home of police abuse. It's never fun, like having to take up what never should have been an issue in the first place.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks a lot, guys. Really appreciate these two Keith, Kevin. I'm sorry, Kevin and Lynn. This is Kevin's first time out with the Peaceful Streets Project for a cop watch. He's been out for a protest before, and Lynn has been out dozens of times. Thanks so much for your service to the people. You guys really protect and serve, unlike the thug cops that we saw tonight.